Good morning, guys. Welcome back to my channel. It's me, Steven, and of course, it's Buddy going for his walk. And there's Odin right there. I'm not sure if you can you see why I call him Odin? Will you look at me? Hi. Yeah, he's got one eye. The other is kind of, oh, I'm sorry, love. I was sorry I bothered you. There goes Odin. I think he's actually Buddy's dad. And right where Odin is where, oh no, Odin's eating Diana's food. Well, I have more for Diana. Alright, I shouldn't be excited about seeing used sneakers next to the dumpster, but that just means other people are doing what I do. I'm so excited. Oh, this is a great example to show you how close airplanes come to my apartment. Yeah, I feel like to airplane watch. My apartment's a great spot. Or if you want a cat watch. He's so sweet. Right now, we'll see when I want him in the apartment later on. We'll see how sweet he is. Ready to go in the house? Ready to go in? He's been out here for 3 hours. Come on, buddy. Come on. Come on. Hey, you. I'm over here. All right. Oh, there's Diana. She wants some food. All right, come on over. Come on, buddy. Come on, honey. Look how cute he is. All right, so I'm gonna... Whoop. The strays are almost out of food, and she wants some din-din. All right, Buddy is back in the apartment. Everyone has had extra treats as an apology, mostly because I got them all very upset a few minutes ago, inadvertently. I'll tell you about that in a moment. Yes, if you haven't already noticed, I would notice pretty quickly, but I'm wearing yesterday's t-shirt. I know. I was going to jump in bed anyway with the cats and my laptop and my camera here to film the video. And rather than put a fresh t-shirt on and get that covered in cat hair, I thought I'd just put this t-shirt on. I'm doing laundry tonight or tomorrow morning. Yeah, so if you're judging me because of the t-shirt, you're clearly not a cat person, and that's okay. I just don't even recognize myself right now that I'm wearing this 2-day-old t-shirt, work t-shirt covered in cat hair. I just don't know who I've become these days. Back when I was a clay artist, a potter, you know, we would wear the same clothes for 3, 4, 5 days in a row because you're covered in clay. You're covered in basically dirt. So there's no sense in putting clean clothes on. We're just hanging out in a garage making pottery. We certainly didn't wear fresh clothes every day. That's kind of what this feels like right now. All right, so enough about my t-shirt and cat hair. I figured I would respond to an email I received. I'm sorry for the lighting. Oh my goodness, this is just not made for TV. I was going to respond to an email that I think Mark sent me. It looks like Mark is going to be working for my airline, and he's going to be training the end of January. And he's being very good, I think, about doing some research before he starts. And so he asked a couple questions, and I thought that they would be best answered in a video, because I'm sure he's not the only person who asks questions like these, and my answers tend to be very long anyway. So I asked if it's okay to film response in a vlog, and he said okay. There's not a bunch of questions, just a couple. And then I have a bit of a story time if you guys are interested. I'll do that. I'll share that info after this. So he asked a couple questions. One, are we able to give free snacks or beverages to an I'm sure he meant upset customer. What are the rules about that? For example, the crying baby and the guy losing his mind. I laughed at that only because I used to be the guy losing his mind. Before I got this job, I tell guests, I couldn't think of the word, I tell guests almost every flight that, especially if they have a beautiful little baby that I just want to like eat like a muffin, I jokingly tell them I used to be allergic to babies. And I'm not even kidding. My eyes was, I've said this before, but I used to cringe the moment I saw a baby. I just couldn't handle them. And now I just love them so much. But I was that guy who would have requested earplugs or something from a flight attendant. But let's see. His question was, are we able to give free snacks? So if you know how you work for, you also know that everything is for sale. Everything. We charge for seat selection. We charge for checking in bags. We charge for carry-on bags. We charge for a bottle of water, soda, coffee, water, tea, Rice Krispie treat, Chex Mix. We charge for everything. Unlike the other airlines that give you a free drink and a snack, which consists, of course, of 4 ounces of a beverage. They don't give you the can. And a little teeny packet of pretzels. And somehow that seems to make people happy. But yes, you pay for everything on my airline, but you get full-size everything, and you get the whole thing. So, whatever. Not that I react when someone says, what do you mean that's $3? So yes, I can comp a snack or a beverage to someone who's upset for any number of reasons. Now, I try not to do this too often. I make mention of it once in a while on my channel, but I try not to offer free stuff from the cart too often, as I really don't want to train our guests or a passenger to behave in a way that in hopes of getting something free. I don't want to train people to act up to get a bottle of water for free, which happens. I'm not going to go into that. It's very much like in cosmetics. The trend of giving away samples sometimes trains customers to actually just get more samples rather than actually buy the product. And so I try not to give away things too often. And when I do, I actually have to use my device, my work device, which is kind of like a little register, and I have to comp stuff. So I literally will put it in as a purchase, hit checkout, select comp, the reason I'm comping it, and then it's through. Now, what are some of the reasons I would comp something? Well, the issue here, the example, a crying baby and someone who's really upset about the crying baby. Is comping something my first solution? Probably not. If the baby is crying and someone's upset about it, first off, I will acknowledge it. If the guy actually stops me or I see he's really upset, I'll stop and I'll acknowledge, oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, babies do cry. The mom's clearly trying her best to, or dad is trying to take care of the baby. Chances are the baby will go to sleep in a moment or two. They frequently do. Babies sleep beautifully on planes. And just being acknowledged, the guy is being upset. Acknowledging that he's upset, seeing that he's upset is sometimes enough. If it's not enough and there's open seats nearby, I might ask if you'd like to move. Oh, I do have an open seat somewhere. Would you like just to move over? They're frequently very happy. I offered a solution. I will sometimes have earplugs on me, and that comes into a question he asked later on. I'll sometimes have earplugs on me. Well, I always have them on me, because sometimes this is a problem. If someone's snoring and the passenger next to them is visibly upset about it, would you like some earplugs? And I give them to a little wink, and they're over the moon. I recognized their situation, and I gave them a little bit of a solution without them having to ask for it. Wow, right? They're so happy. But if being moved, any of that isn't enough, I will say, well, can I get you a snack, or can I get you something to drink, like a Coke or a juice or something? And even just offering that is sometimes enough. But if they do take something, if I give it to them, I have to go into the system, comp it, because technically, when someone buys something off our aircraft, like a snack or a beverage, they're really kind of not buying it through I almost said my airline. They're almost not buying it from my airline. They're actually buying it from the catering company. That's actually who's the transaction is held through them, not the airline. So I have to actually go into the computer, my iPad, and comp that item so that the airline can pay for whatever that item is. So yes, I can comp something, give something away. My first solution is not that. My second solution is sometimes not that. But if it comes to the fact where if I can buy a drink, will that make you happy? Then I'm going to be able to buy him a drink. So yes, sorry for the long answer to that simple question, but I there's not a yes or a no. And I think some people would just say, yes, we're allowed to do that. But that doesn't really give you any tools other than comping someone. Does that make sense? All right, so also, if I wanted to stock up on earplugs, back to earplugs, in case I could offer it to someone like that, would that be too risky for liability, etc.? Now, once again, I'll remind you guys, things I say are just my experience, my points of view. They're not what my company would have me say, I'm sure. So I actually don't know that we've actually ever been given direction on can or can't we give one of our guests earplugs. Because technically, I guess there could be some sort of liability. I'm sure someone has been sued for an earplug that got stuck or something. I don't know. But have I done it? Will I do it? Will I continue to give a guest a pair of earplugs that I might have? Fresh ones, clean ones, in little plastic? Yes. I will offer earplugs when I have them, when a guest is clearly in discomfort. If someone's sitting in the very last row of the aircraft, which happened last week, and they're very upset and they want us to be quiet, this is our work environment, this is our office, we can't remain silent, but would you like a pair of earplugs just to maybe help? That might be one way, or if it's a baby crying nearby, or if someone's snoring, earplugs are always great. Do I worry about liability? Not at all. Now, the liability that I think you mentioned here, in a different situation, for example, when I worked in cosmetics at Neiman Marcus, I would, one Halloween, I wanted to give little candies along with any samples I gave one of my guests. In fact, this is years ago. I used to work for Clarins, and Clarins is huge on sampling. And so I figured if they asked for some samples, or if I offered some samples, I would also give them a little Snickers bar, a little mini one, or a little lollipop or something. And my manager said, by no means are you to do that, because if that person gave that little Snickers to a child with a peanut allergy, or if a kid was running around with a lollipop in his mouth and he tripped and, hurt himself, we would be liable. And I thought, well, those are rotten people who would do that, but people are people. So I understand the idea about liability. Would I be concerned about it for an earplug? Probably not. So I would indeed give those earplugs. Oh, I thought he had another question. That was it. Okay. Well, I think they're two good questions. And I think the bit about giving away snacks touches on not just can we give them, yes, but what would you do first? Would that be your first approach to as a solution? For me, no. My first solution is acknowledging the problem. If I can move them, potentially, that would be great. Sometimes just acknowledging a problem is enough, or making an offer. Would you like me to move you to a different seat? I do have a middle seat, 4 rows back. No, it's okay. I'll be fine. I'll just be miserable. Okay, well, great. I'll see you soon. If you need something, ring the bell. Or I can offer a snack or a pair of earplugs. So, all right. So those are the two questions. I thought there was another one, but I guess not. So I figured I would go into a bit of a story time because a memory popped up on my Facebook wall. That memory of mine on Facebook was a photograph of me standing in front of the lake at Piedmont Park in Atlanta. Look at my little baby here. Claire. Hi. Claire. Give me that tail. I now have 3 cat beds along the side of my bed. I have about 18 inches of mattress that I can sleep on. So that memory was of me standing in front of the lake at Piedmont Park, and seeing that photo really moved me today and made me very nostalgic about this journey I've been on for the past 3 years. I had just driven up to Atlanta the day before at the invitation of my friend Steven. Steven, Juan, and Phil are 3 guys that I met on a cruise a couple years before. I had not really met them in person since, but we did keep in touch through Facebook and mutual acquaintances. And I must have shared something on Facebook enough to let Steven know that I really was alone and going through a difficult time during that Christmas. And so he invited me up to Atlanta. Now, the 3 of them every year would go up on like Christmas Eve, for example, the day before, up to Steven's house. He has another place up in the Smoky Mountains in North Carolina, at the top of a mountain, surrounded by the swirling mists that make up the Smoky Mountains. Just gorgeous. And so he invited me up to the house for Christmas. And I was a little awkward in accepting the invitation because, you know, I didn't want to feel like a burden, as I hardly knew anybody really in person at all. And but I accepted the invitation. So the cat just threw herself down next to me, and she weighs quite a bit. So I drove up to Atlanta. The next day I explored Atlanta by myself while everyone else was busy. And then the next day we packed up our bags and we drove off to North Carolina. And it was either driving up there to the Smoky Mountains or on the way to dinner. I suspect it was while we were driving to the up into the mountains. While I still had some Wi-Fi. I was on every website I could find looking for work in the Atlanta area. Steven had suggested very generously, since I was in the situation I was in, homeless, living in a minivan in Tampa, that he had plenty of space in his home in Atlanta, and he invited me to move there because the job offerings were much better, clearly, in Atlanta than they were in Tampa. And so this is a rare case of me accepting help. One of my greatest fears is to be a burden to people. And so I accepted that. So I started looking for work online. So I applied to, I think the W Hotel, Saks, Neiman's. I applied to every sort of luxury base I could find in Atlanta, as that was my industry in Boston. Then I applied to Delta because, you know, Atlanta, Delta, whatever. And Steven said, well, if you want to be a flight attendant, which I really didn't want to be a flight attendant, that wasn't my goal. I wanted a job. I wanted to eat. So I applied for Delta. He's like, well, if you want to be a flight attendant, you should apply to other airlines. And so while I was in the back of the car, we were driving out of Atlanta. I hit Indeed, and I hit all sorts of different websites, and I hit individual. I think when I applied to the other airlines, I applied right at their websites. I didn't know what if anyone was hiring. I didn't know if there was an opening or not. I didn't even know that's what you had to do. I just went to each career tab and applied. And when people talk about their journey as a flight attendant and their timeline, they typically talk about, you know, when they applied. For me, the journey to become a flight attendant was leaving Tampa and accepting help from my friend Steven. I'll be eternally grateful to Steven and Phil particularly. Juan lives in his own apartment in downtown Atlanta, which is gorgeous. But Stephen and Phil live in this big house, and they invited me into that house, really not knowing me outside of the person they met on this cruise and through Facebook. But my journey to become a flight attendant and a full person really started the 20th of December of 2016 when I drove up to Atlanta. And that next day, seeing this memory of me on Facebook, standing in front of this pond, dressed really cute. I was wearing this cute little sweater blazer. Really struck home today, thinking how far I've come in these 3 years. So I'm off track. I applied to those airlines and stuff. We drove up into the mountains and I lost internet connection. We got back to, we had a beautiful time. I mean, mind-bendingly beautiful time up at the top of the mountains. When we drove back and we got back to civilization, because that's pretty high up there in the mountains, I noticed I had an email from Saks for a job interview, and that was New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve, I had my job interview with Saks, and I walked out of that interview with a job offer. Saks in Atlanta had called the HR department in Boston, and Boston had said, "Don't let him leave the building," because I was pretty good. I was good. And so Saks offered me the best that they possibly could. And there's a couple of things that they can do to sweeten the pot for me to have accepted the job offer. It's a flat commission environment. Within the first, I think, 90 days, if you are working at a loss, if you have not earned as much as they've given you, you actually, yeah, it's not good. But they give you 90 days. They were going to give me 6 months instead of 90 days to build a clientele enough where I could start to earn money. And they were going to offer me as much as they possibly could, the best package possible. And I remember walking out of Saks. It was New Year's Eve. And I remember walking out into the sidewalk thinking, a job at Saks in Lenox Plaza, in the most successful, probably one of the most successful jewelry departments in all of Saks, with a little mini apartment in a big fancy house in Buckhead, which is the fancy part of Atlanta, with good friends and security and a roof over and 2 great dogs, 2 great little dogs. I should have been thrilled. I remember stopping at the sidewalk thinking, I should be absolutely thrilled. And I was just not. I was not thrilled. Because I was going to end up right where I was in Boston and living in someone else's house. Big fancy house. I lived in a big fancy mansard roof Victorian house in the top of Ashmont Hill in Boston. Working at Neiman Marcus and Saks, making fair money. I was going to end up in this same exact situation that I ran away from when I turned 45, and I had that sort of midlife renaissance where it wasn't a midlife crisis quite yet, but it was something. I had to make something from this place I was in, and so I found myself going right back to living in someone else's house in a room, nice room, working in somewhere fancy to earn just enough money to survive in a big city, and it was not good. And I should have been happy, right? I looked down at my phone and I saw I had an email from, oh, I want to get emotional. I saw I had an email from my airline. They were the first to respond to me. And I saw an email from my company, and they said, "Oh, gee, we'd like to get to know you better. Would you please come to an interview, a face-to-face interview, on January 10th?" And so I RSVP'd right away. And so that is a little story time. inspired by a memory that I had on Facebook today. You know, it was a dark place I was coming from. I was in Tampa, having just left a relationship that was just explosively bad, and I had gotten to a point where I had to choose. I had to choose whether to eat, have health insurance, you know, Obamacare, like $38 a month, eat and have gas and insurance on my vehicle, or pay rent. And so it was a minivan. So I was on YouTube, watching videos on how to live in your car. And so I had gone around and found lots of videos on how to sort of do a cheap build out inside a minivan. So I took the seats out of my minivan. I bought a Coleman cot, which looks just like the miniature cots that I have for my cats, actually, on my bed. It was a Coleman cot. I had some plastic drawers from Walmart, those white plastic 3 drawers things that you can buy for cheap. I had 2 of those, 4 of those. I had 4 of those, 2 in the back, 2 in the middle. I had a butane powered stove, like a burner, a cooler, a 5-gallon bucket with a toilet lid, and I had cut my futon that folded. It was a futon couch kind of thing. I cut it right down the middle where the seam is, where it folds, and I put 1/2 that fit on top of the cot. It was surprisingly comfortable. And I put curtains up around the windows, black curtains, and I lived in my minivan from October, November, December into January of 2016. And I slept in the parking lots of Planet Fitness because there are 24-hour gyms. I would go into the gym, work out, shave, shower, brush my teeth, and then go to work. And then go where I wanted to go to the beach in St. Pete. I was dating someone, kind of, as much as I could be dating someone at that point in St. Pete. So I would stay at his house once in a while, but not often, because that didn't work out well either. But it was not the worst time in my life, but it was one of the most desperate times at the same time. I was making so little money. I would go to CVS, where they had Chef Boyardee, the little raviolis in a can, like for $1. I'd buy 2 of those, and it was so hot sometimes not in front of the heater, because sometimes I'd run the heat, that I could actually get that food to room temperature or warmer, and I'd eat those out of the can with a spoon. Am I just impressing the hell out of you with how luxurious my life was? I would eat ravioli out of a can in a parking lot at a Planet Fitness, trying not to be noticed too much. And all of that changed really today, 3 years ago on the 21st, when I had moved into Atlanta, or been invited to move into Atlanta, so I don't know why I was inspired to share all of that with you, but yeah, so happy December 21st, happy Vlogmas 21, and before I share anything really more embarrassing, I should probably end this video for the day, and I will talk to you tomorrow on the 22nd of Vlogmas. All right, you have a great day and fly safe. Bye. Wait. I'm so sorry. Of course, I always have something I forgot to tell you. I found 2 photographs on Google Photos that are of my little minivan. I really should look at them before I attach them to this video. But so right after this, I'm going to attach 2 photographs of my minivan, or 3. I think there's 2 of my little setup. It's not the best photo of my little setup, but because I clearly certainly wasn't trying to advertise my situation, but I did take those 2 photos. So I'll attach those here just for kicks. That's it. I will end this video now officially. Fly safe.